My name is Tammy Canizero, and I'm so glad you're here to join me today. We're going to talk a little bit about how to bounce back after losing your job. This is a subject that is very near and dear to me, and I think it's something that pretty much everybody can relate to, because I believe that at some point during our careers, we're all going to lose our job. Sometimes it's going to be of our own doing that we want to leave our job, but a lot of times it's not of our own doing, and the better we're prepared for it, the better we're all going to be. So I'm very happy that you're here today, and I'm really looking forward to answering your questions and talking you through some things that have helped me, because I have lost my job, my husband has lost his job, and it's definitely not the end of the world. It's things that we're all going to go through. So I'd love to get started with you, but first, why don't I tell you just a little bit about myself. I live in Dallas. I'm a marketing and public relations executive. I'm also a speaker, and I'm a mentor. I'm on a board at Texas A&M where we mentor students. For me, I talk to students about careers in marketing and how they can get ahead. I've also written a book. It's called Tales of the Terminated, and it's a humorous look at life after a layoff. I also have a blog. You can follow me on tammycanizero.com. What is the best way to move into a field that you're very interested in, but you only have personal experience, not professional experience? That is a great question, and it's something actually that I have done. The best way to try and do this, of course, is you want to create professional experience. So, something that you can add to your resume to build that up. For example, let's say that you find that you really like event planning. Maybe that's something that you want to do, and you're not doing that in your career, but maybe you have been planning large parties for your neighborhood, or you planned your wedding or your daughter's wedding, and you really think that that might be something that you want to do. The first thing you can do is I would volunteer maybe at a large church or at a nonprofit to plan a big gala and help them out, because that gives you a professional experience that you can put on your resume, and you can see all the ins and outs of planning such a large event. And it's not something that you did for yourself, it's something that you did for someone else, and that takes the personal out of it, and that adds the professional and puts it in. Another way to do that, if you really want to jump right in, is to take an entry-level job at an event planning company or at a large hotel chain. Every major hotel chain plans meetings, weddings, parties, all sorts of events, and they have a catering department. All of that is a way to get into event planning. Cities have convention centers. That's another way to plan large-scale events. But the easiest way, I think, is to have your day job and then to go, like I said, to a large church. I know my church has at least 3 or 4 people on staff that actually plan weddings, and that you'd be surprised at how much work goes into that. And suddenly you could transition in, but you get to know the caterers, you get to know the florists, you get to know all the people that goes about that. The same thing is true, though, if you're trying to do something like, let's say you want to move from accounting and you want to go into marketing. I would look to see if there's a way you can transition within your own company, and I would talk to HR and find out, what jobs are available. Now, be careful here, because you might have to take a lower title and lower money to make that transition, and there is nothing wrong with that. I know a lot of people in their careers balk at that, but I've got to tell you, at least 3 times in my career, I have taken a lower title and lower money, because it's something that I want to do. I think there's value in it. It's going to add to my career, and it was just something that I felt strongly about. And every single time I did that, I ended up making more money and getting ahead. And it's something that you want to do, but you've just got to be prepared for it. But there is a way to do that. So I think that's the best way to go about doing that. And what is the biggest challenge for a person entering the workforce after the age of 50? Okay, I hear a lot about this. when I'm at speaking engagements, especially when I talk to people who are older. And, you know, I talk a lot about career reinvention, and I get it, I really do, because I happen to be an older candidate. So I hear you, and I know that it's a very serious matter. But there are several things that older candidates are challenged with, and the biggest thing that I see when I speak with people and listen to their stories is I think that we tend to be our own worst enemy when it comes to the job search. For anybody who's of an older age or perceives that they're of an older age. And what I mean by that is that we need to stop telling ourselves no and things, and that there are no jobs out there, and you know, that I don't have the skills that companies are looking for, and that, you know, there's all sorts of no that runs through our head, and we just need to say stop it, and just stop it right now, because we can be our own worst enemies, and we need to just get out of our own way when that happens. We also need to make sure that our skills are up to date. You know, and that's something that everybody has to do, myself included. Everybody needs to be on social media. I can't tell you how many times I've been to a networking event and I meet somebody as young as in their 40s who still doesn't have a LinkedIn account. Who doesn't have LinkedIn? I mean, this is not a huge technological leap for anybody who has an email account. And besides, you need to have LinkedIn if you're going to network and if you're going to look for a job. So you need to be on LinkedIn. You need to have a Facebook account. You need to at least tweet once so you know what it is. Go on Vine, look at Pinterest, you know, look at Tumblr, look at all of the different applications. You don't have to be an expert at all of them, but you need to know what they are and be able to talk intelligently about them in an interview, especially if you're in a creative field or something like me in marketing and public relations. Those are tools and skills that we use and we need, and I need to be able to talk intelligently about them and how they can affect business and why I would need them for the companies that I'm representing. So I need to be up to date, you know, on all of those things. We need to be relevant when we present ourselves. Any older worker does, you know, and not only when I'm talking about skill set, guys, but I'm talking about in attitude and in appearance. And I hate to say that, but you know something, we are judged within the first 10 to 20 seconds of somebody seeing us. I mean, you guys are judging me right now. If I could see you, I'd probably be judging you. And that happens in an interview. So we need to make sure that our attitude is relevant. I'm happy, I'm upbeat, I'm here to help you. I know what's going on. I'm not stuck back 20 years ago where we didn't have a laptop at work. But my presentation is also that way. You know, my clothes, my makeup, my hair is relevant and up to date. You know, women, you know, I like gray hair on women, but unfortunately that's a huge age killer, you know, and it doesn't help us at all in an interview, so we need to take care of that. You know, buy a box of Miss Clairol, go visit your hairdresser. Clothing. You know, if the last time you bought an interview suit was in the 80s and it had the giant dynasty shoulders on it, needs to go. And we don't need to wear stilettos, but at the same time, if comfort was a selling point in the shoes that you have on, they are a no-no for an interview, so we need to get rid of those. Men, you got the same challenges. I mean, you need to come to grips with your hair loss. Get a razor, shave it off, you'll look younger and hipper, I guarantee it. We have to project, you know, this attitude. We don't need to look like we're dressing, you know, 20 years old, but we definitely need to look like, you know, we're in the game. So those are some tips that I have. I mean, the biggest thing is anybody who's considered older, push no out of your vocabulary. It's not there anymore. People are hiring. We do have a lot to offer people. We have a lot to offer companies. So, and that's all I wanted to say about that. I know that to be true, and I have gotten a job after the age of 50, so I know that it's possible. What's the first thing I should do after I've lost my job? Okay, first of all, do not crawl in the fetal position and start crying. That's not going to help anybody. You know, it's okay to have a pity party. Brief. Do not have a long-term pity party. And the key word here is party, not pity. So, you know, go ahead and have just a little party, and, that's it. Then be done with it and walk away from it. I mean, you got to start. Your new job now is to find a job. I know you've heard that before, and it's somewhat cliche, but that's what it is now. So start networking. That's the first thing you should do. When I lost my job, I instantly started contacting everybody I knew. I had my talking point ready. That's the next thing you should do, is get your talking point ready. Mine was very simple. It was like, hey, I'm making a change and I'm looking for a new job in marketing, preferably at the director level. Would you keep me in mind if you hear of anything? I'd love to have coffee or lunch with you. I'm free on Wednesday. Would that work for you? Something like that, something very, very simple. And that was it. And I started just reaching out to as many people as I knew and organizing coffee dates, lunch dates. I got my resume up to date. Those are the things you need to do right away. Just do not sit and wallow in pity. There's nothing to be pitiful about. Lots of people lose their jobs. Is it okay to take some time off, or do I need to start looking for a job right away? That is an absolute great question. And it's a tough question because it depends on your financial situation, but honestly, it is okay to take some time off. And that's a little secret that a lot of people don't want you to know. Somebody shared that with me when I was laid off. Somebody I actually networked with, it was a former colleague, and she shared that with me, that she goes, be sure you take some time for yourself. People won't tell you that. She actually took time and planted a garden. I'm not so much of a gardener. I don't want to get my hands in the dirt. But whether it's reading a book or painting, or maybe you want to take time to clean out your closets, or maybe you want to take a long weekend and go visit somebody, I don't care. But do something for yourself. You just don't need to take a lot of time. That said, if you want to take some time off, what I would do right away is I would get my resume together. I would go ahead and start networking right away, even reach out to some recruiters if you know some. Don't wait to start applying for jobs, because while you're taking your time off, you can still be available via cell phone and via email. Also, I would go ahead and order business cards, because that's going to be part of your strategy for finding new work and bouncing back from this job loss. So I'd go ahead and order your business cards, resume, get that updated, make sure your LinkedIn is updated, make sure you started networking, order your business cards, then take your time off. My husband and I actually did this when I was laid off. We had a vacation planned, and about 3 or 4 weeks after I was laid off, we went away for 2 weeks. It was already planned, but I let everybody know that I was going out of town and how they could get in touch with me. And it worked out just fine. It was actually a very, very good thing. What is the toughest thing to overcome from losing a job? Aside from the loss of income, the toughest thing for me about losing a job or overcoming a job loss is the it's the loss of identity. Is that we are so tied to our jobs in terms of what we do. It identifies us. It gives us something to call ourselves. Think about all your social situations, and you meet somebody in the grocery store or on the street, and after you say, hey, how are you? If you haven't seen them in a while, the first thing they say is, so what are you doing now? What do you do? And it rolls off your tongue. Well, I'm marketing director for whoever, or I'm an engineer with whatever. When you lose your job, you don't have the luxury anymore of saying, I am so-and-so with this. And that is the toughest thing to overcome. And my advice to anybody who has experienced a job loss is to figure out what you're going to say to people. Practice saying it out loud at home before you actually meet somebody, because it can be very difficult. You don't want to meet somebody that you haven't seen for quite some time at the mall or wherever, and they say, hey, how are you? What are you doing now? And you look at them like you've got deer in the headlights, and you go, I don't know. Yeah, and that you don't want that at all. One thing I want to say here too is that you are going to meet people here, and you don't you don't want to drag them into your pity with you. This is not a time to drag them into any drama as to how you were let go, and you don't want to go, oh, she done me wrong, and the man let me down. Don't do it. Just, talk to them, say something like, hey, they say, well, weren't you with so-and-so? Yeah, I was, and things happened, and now I'm on my own. I'm looking for my next opportunity. This person that you're talking to may be the key to that next opportunity. So I would definitely, I definitely encourage you to, to keep it, keep it happy, keep it real, but by all means, keep it positive. I lost my job more than a year after a relocation assignment for my husband. I was working remotely for more than a year and have been out of work for 4 months now after a project ended. But now I am wanting to go back to the U.S. and start looking. Let's see. So in those 4 months, I really did not look for a job because I wanted to back through Europe, and I did. Now I'm ready to go back to work. How do I address those 4 months where I only occasionally learn short technical courses in between my traveling? I work in IT. Thank you very much. I love this question. Thank you very much, Louisa. This is a good one. It's all in how you kind of spin it. Okay, so let's think about this for just a second. I would spin it in something such like, lost my job. So I relocated with my husband. We've been working remotely, and we had the opportunity to take 4 months off to do some traveling. During those 4 months, I also had the opportunity to take some courses to keep up my technical training. But now I'm done, and I'm back, and I'm ready to go again. I would just kind of say that while I had this opportunity, I took some time off so that I could keep up my skills. I took some courses while I was traveling, and I would just kind of make it happen from there. I don't think that's a negative. You took some courses. You didn't just come home and sit down and say, I'm going to play cards and I don't care about working anymore. There's always a way to address that. And you're in IT. As long as you've kept up your skills, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I would also encourage you to do contract work. I'm sure you've thought of that already, but that would be a great way to get your foot in the door for something, saying, hey, I'm back. And the key for you too is probably I wouldn't focus on that I'm backpacking through Europe going, I had the opportunity, we were out, we did some traveling, but I also wanted to take these courses, and I got those courses done, and now I'm finished with that, and I'm ready to have my job again. You don't want them to think that you're going to suddenly quit the job and go travel again. That might be the only thing they would come up with. But I would think that you would be pretty good at just saying it was an opportunity you took and you want to take advantage of it. What are your thoughts on LinkedIn profiles, do's and don'ts? That's a good one, especially, there's so many do's and don'ts for LinkedIn. For one, somebody who's of my age, I remove the years from things because I just don't want to give anybody a reason to know how old I am. I mean, you can figure it out. If you look how much experience I have, there's no way I just graduated last year, but there's no reason that I should put down what year I graduated from college or what year I worked at every single company. I also don't put a lot of personal information on LinkedIn. That's not the place for it. If you want to find out personal information, you can go to my Facebook page. That's my more personal stuff. LinkedIn to me is all business. I don't see any reason to put down hobbies. I've seen on LinkedIn in some cases people put down their height and their weight. I don't even know why. Don't ask me. Don't put down that you like to crochet in your spare time. I don't think that that's of interest. I'd like to know. I like to know, what's your career about? If I'm a recruiter or I'm trying to find out about you, how can you help me in my business? To me, that's just the virtual resume tool, and I just want to know what you're about. There's also, I'm kind of hesitant, like when I was between jobs, I didn't put on there, I am looking for things. That was just something personal to me. I didn't like it to look like I was searching. I wanted people to think I was working. And in a lot of ways I was. I had, started a fledgling consulting business at the time, and it wasn't real big at that point, but I wanted people to think that I was really working. You know how nobody wants to hire somebody who's not really doing things. They want to hire somebody who's in high demand, right? So I didn't want to write it down that it looked like I was looking for something. So I always position it as such that I am, a marketing expert with, focus on consumer brands, public relations, expert doing this, speaker. I put down what it is. I don't say am looking for. That's just a personal thing to me. So that would be a huge don't. Make sure your picture is up to date. Do not put one of those memes on there that is just or avatar things that's just a blank page. And make sure your eyes are open. There's some really bad pictures on LinkedIn. I mean, if that's the only way somebody has a visual of you, just make sure it's a good picture. I'm trying to think of some other don'ts on there. Some do's. I like to see what any kind of professional association that you're with. And I do like to see that you have some personal recommendations that are written out versus those ones anymore where we just check the box off. I kind of don't like those check the box ones because I don't know how valid those are. I would like for you to come up and say, yeah, I worked with Tammy on this project. Boy, she was awesome. She got it done on time. We were within budget. I didn't even have to worry about anything because she just rocked it. That's the kind of thing that I would like to have on there, not just that big line down at the bottom where it says 18 people have checked off that Tammy knows about marketing. I just don't like that as much. So if you could get some more personal recommendations, I think that's a real do. How do you go about getting business if you choose to be a consultant or contractor after you've been laid off? Does networking play a big role? Absolutely. And here's a good thing. If you think you want to consult or do contract work and you have any inkling, A, that you might be laid off, or that you are planning this, that you want to plan to be a consultant, so you're going to kind of maybe plan your exit from your company, start networking way ahead of time. And I was really good at networking. I've always been good at that, where no matter where I'm working, every single week I send out at least anywhere between 2 and 5 emails to people that I haven't seen for some time. And I just send a quick little note saying, hey, how are you? We haven't touched base in a while. I'm doing this. I'm still at this company. Whatever I'm doing, would love to catch up with you. So that way, when I was let go and I wanted to start consulting, it wasn't very hard for me to reach out. Here I am. This is what I'm doing. Do you have any projects that need marketing or PR help? I'd love to help you out. And it didn't take me but maybe 5 or 6 weeks before I had a couple of clients lined up already. So once you do that, it just keeps going. But also be sure that you have your business cards together. Think of what product or service offering you're going to do. For me, here's what I offer. I offer strategic marketing. I offer public relations services. I can write press releases. I can write pitches. I can contact media for you. Here's what I can do in marketing. I can help you. I do consumer marketing, so I know what that is. I'm not a business-to-business person. Those are the things that I do, so I have to have my story together, but it's really all about, and if you can't help me with it, if I contact one of my network and they don't have any work, do you know somebody who does? And it's always pushing that envelope, push, push, push. And then if they don't have anything, 6 weeks later, I go back to them and I ask them again. So it's never a no forever. It's only a no for today. That's what I would do. What advice would I give somebody just out of college? Something, that's a really good question too, because we talk a lot about those of us who are getting laid off and those of us who are older. But when I'm at Texas A&M and I'm talking with the graduate students or the undergraduates, something, they are just as concerned as any of us who are already out in the workforce. And, when you think about it, they have every right to be, and I tell them this, half kidding but half serious, is that they are graduating with very little experience, right? Maybe they have an internship or two under their belt, or maybe they have, a little bit of experience, but I am out there with 20 plus years of experience, and I'm competing for the same jobs that they are, and I'm willing to take it at the same salary that they're willing to take it at. So they're going to have to compete with me. And what I would say as the same thing is you have to get over yourself that you have a graduate degree, college student, because there are a lot of us that do. You know, I've got an MBA, so do a lot of my friends, and I've got the experience and the chops to back that up. So you've got to get over the fact that you want to do a very high-level job, you're an entry-level worker, you're going to have to get your hands dirty. And I know students hear that all the time, but I don't think they really understand it till you get into the world of business. And when I got out of graduate school, my first job was with Neiman Marcus, and it was my dream job. I wanted to be a buyer for Neiman's, but the very first job that you get when you go into that program is assistant buyer, and assistant buyer is like the grunt job of the whole company. And you know, they always say it all rolls downhill, right? Well, it rolls down to the assistant buyer, but you have to do everything. I mean, from packing boxes, going out to the distribution center, potentially, you know, walking onto the back of 18-wheelers, sometimes looking for your merchandise if you had to see it come in. I mean, we did everything. And it was the greatest learning experience I think I've ever had. Talk about learning how to run a business. And I've learned more probably at that job than every other job I ever had. So my advice to college students is take a job, any job. Your job right now is to get a job, and you need to get what I call skins on the wall. You need experience. I don't care what the title of it is. Get the experience, get it in your field, because as an employer, you're not of value to me until you start getting a lot of experience. And plan on staying at that job for a couple of years. Don't don't stay there 6 months or a year and then leave. I don't need to see you bouncing around. But that would be my advice. What are good resources for someone to throw up to grow up their consulting practice, form an LLP, etc.? You know, that is a good question. I guess it depends on how big you want to go. When I did mine, I didn't even, since it's just me and I'm offering services, I don't have employees working for me, I don't even have it pulled together as an LLP. That is a good thing to do, though, as you grow. When I started writing my books, I did pull that together as an LLP, though. And I got an attorney who helped me pull that together. You can do it on your own. I found that it was very little money for me in the scheme of things for me to get an attorney together. Also a good idea to get an accountant to figure out what you're going to need to do for taxes. That is a big thing when you're working by yourself. I got to tell you, that first year, my husband was laid off in, I guess it was in May or June, and 6 months later I was laid off. But during that first 6 months, he found full-time contract work, and then I was laid off and I started consulting. And we got our accountant and we said, okay, what do we need to do? And we thought we were being pretty smart, even without her, about how much money we needed to save and, you know, to pay for taxes. And I think we saved 40% or something like that to pay for taxes, and that was not enough. We got hit pretty hard the next year during income tax time because we had not saved substantially, and we should have got with her sooner. So I would say get your accountant together, figure out what you're going to owe in taxes, try and anticipate that. You know, and there's another thing, and this isn't a resource, but it kind of leads me down that path, is figure out your financials when you're going to do your own consulting. If you are single especially, you've got to figure out how you're going to live. And, you know, the one thing about consulting, one of my friends says that the thing about consulting, and I love it, so it's fun because you control your own hours, and, you know, you get to control who you work for and what you do and all that. But my friend tells me, well, with consulting, you have to fish while you eat. And what she means by that is, you know, while you're eating or while you're working for your clients, you've got to be fishing. You've got to be out there looking for your next client, because what if this one goes away? And so if your own new business development person. So that's the thing with consulting. You have to always be on your toes looking for your next line of work, and you've got to have some bank account behind you to make sure that if all those clients suddenly go away, that you can live for a little while you go look for your next your next gigs. So you've changed careers and industries several times. Do you spin this when you talk to prospective employers in that you have a variety of experience, or how do you smooth this over? This kind of goes along with what we were talking about just a little while ago, about taking some time off to travel. Really it's all in the presentation. And if you look at my resume, and you guys can all look me up on LinkedIn. Believe it or not, though, there are 2 Tammy Canizaros out there. Be sure you look for the one with dark hair. It does look like, on the one hand, that I have a lot of different, careers, but it really isn't. It's all part of the same thing. It's just different companies. I've had a lot of different companies, not a lot of different careers. But it's just, how do I present that to people? I do reposition my experience every time I interview, though. So I start out with, my career at Neiman Marcus, which was mostly merchandising and buying, and then I went into marketing. So if I'm talking to somebody about a position in, let's say, promotional marketing, I'll focus on my years at Nokia when I did more promotional marketing. And then if I'm talking to somebody about events, that's a little bit Nokia because I did sports marketing and events there, but then some of that is sales. And if I'm talking about strategy, I'll go to Blockbuster and what I did in strategic marketing. If I'm talking about public relations, I do this over here. So I kind of reassort things and I focus on different things, and the top of my resume changes depending on the interview I'm going on. So it focuses on whatever it is that interview has to do with, and it kind of wraps everything up. And then the chronology of of my experience is down at the bottom, and that doesn't really play such a big role. It's really what the meat of it is up top, is what are my skills. I'm good at communications, I'm good at strategy, I've got financial experience, I've got research experience. There's all these different things. I'm good at leading a team, I'm good in front of CEOs, that kind of stuff. That's what's all at the top, and that kind of leads us into all the rest of it. The fact is, at the bottom of my resume, it says that, yeah, I have a degree in engineering technology. That's usually a nice little conversation starter. Has nothing in the world to do with what I do for works, but it's there, and I can always rely on that if I need to have something else to say. When I'm working from home, do I make it a point to get dressed up and ready for the day as if I was going to an office? Yes, absolutely. When I got laid off, I made it a rule that I had to be up, showered, dressed, makeup on, breakfast done, TV off, and I had to be sitting in my office by 9 o'clock. That was just the rule. And we weren't going to sit around in sweats. We were not going to just lollygag the day away. And I would, I had a very set schedule, and I would, network from this time to this time. I would look at a job board from this time to this time, and I would do this, this, and this. I had it all set out. I would break for lunch at noon. And I found that to be very helpful, because otherwise you're just going to waste the day away. And we're not going to get on social media, and we're not going to, play games or solitaire or whatever, all day long. And being dressed up is just part of it. I find, because I work from home a lot, and I'm talking to clients on the phone, and I'm having conference calls, and if I'm dressed up as though I were sitting in front of them, I find that I project a more professional image. And that might just be me, but I think that it comes across in my posture, and it probably comes across in my voice. And if I can feel it and they can hear it, I think that that's better. It's just like for an interview. If I'm doing an interview from home, for a new job, I dress up as though I'm going to that interview. Why would I sit here in my sweats and do an interview? That just gives me a reason to slouch and be lazy. That's just not for me. So yes, I do dress up. I was laid off, and now I'm considering a career change. Do you have any tips or advice for me? first of all, congratulations. I think that's great. I love that you want to do a career change. I did. I say I've reinvented myself at least 4 times in my career. I've gone from engineering to retail buyer to event marketing to strategic marketing to public relations to consultant. So now to author. I've done all sorts of things. The hardest part for some people is deciding what to do, and we can talk about that in a minute. But if you know what you want to do, the hardest part is to get a plan together. That, to me, is the #1 thing you have to do to make a career change. Get that plan together. Write it out as though you were doing a business plan for work. I did. I took a grease board and I wrote my plan out when I wanted to become a writer. I didn't even know how to do it. I was writing a blog and I wanted to write a book, and I had no idea how you did that. So I put it all down. I wrote what I was going to do. I figured out a financial plan, how I was going to make money while I wrote the book, what kind of job I was going to have to support myself, and then I made it happen. And I think when you write it down, you kind of see all the moving parts and pieces, and then I started networking to figure out the things that I didn't know, like how do you publish a book and that kind of thing. And that's the most important part. Even way back when I made my first career change, when I was working in engineering and I hated what I was doing, and that was my first job out of undergrad, I didn't like it, so I took a part-time job at the mall, and I was just so bored with my day job. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. That was my hard part. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew it wasn't engineering. So I took a part-time job at the mall at a jewelry store, and I'd probably been there a month or 2, and I realized that I loved working at that job for minimum wage 100 times more than I liked my day job making a ton of money that was paying for my sports car. And I remember having an aha moment where I thought, oh my gosh, what's wrong with this picture? So then I started thinking about how I could get into something that was more fun. I started thinking about marketing. I got the applications to go back to school. I decided that's what I'm going to do, get a degree in marketing, decided on a graduate degree, and made the plan to go back to school, filled out the forms for, there's my plan, got the financial, support that I needed to go back to school, and one thing led to another. And I think that's the big thing, is you just have to have a plan. Now, if you don't know what you want to do and you still are considering a career change, but you just know you don't want to do that, do like I did. Take a part-time job somewhere or volunteer somewhere. In something else. Just see if something strikes your fancy. Nonprofits love to have our support. And you can get in and you can try something else on a project basis. Don't feel like you have to sign up for something long term. A lot of people say that they'd like to do event planning or something, and I got to tell you, that's a very tough business to get into. But if you want to try it, go volunteer at a nonprofit to help with their gala. Everybody has one. They all have a fundraiser. So go do that for one time. Just try it and see what you think. What's the toughest interview question I've ever had? Oh, hands down. Somebody asked me one time how many gas stations there were in the United States. And that threw me for the biggest loop. And, talk about when you're coming out of when you've lost your job and you're going to go back into the workforce again and you're going to have some interviews, you've got to prepare for every question like this. And especially if you're a little older and you haven't interviewed in quite some time, be prepared. It threw me for such a loop, and luckily it seemed to me like it was a minute, but it was really just seconds. And luckily I figured out what he was wanting, and all he wanted to know was how I thought about things. And he was trying to figure out, did I have a logical brain or didn't I? And he wanted a numerical answer to how many gas stations are there in the United States, and I had to give him an answer while I sat there. Couldn't use a calculator, just had to sit there. So it snapped in me, and I thought, oh, he just wants to see what I'm thinking. So I just started talking out loud and made some assumptions, and at the end of it I said, here's the answer. And he thanked me very much, and he walked away, and I did get the job. And of course I didn't have the right answer at all, and he didn't care about the answer. It was just, did I have a logical thought process? And that's all he wanted to know. And you know something, while we're on that right now, especially for anybody who is a little bit older, but even for those of you who aren't, when you're getting ready to interview, here's a great idea, something that I've used for a long time and it's really helpful, is sit down before your interviews and prepare what I call a Q&A document. Start writing down every question that you think somebody's going to ask you in an interview, because especially if you've had a job loss, you do not want to, again, take any of that baggage from a job loss into that interview. So come up with everything, you know, so why did you leave your last job? You know, why are you interested in coming to work for me? What are you doing? You know, think of every question they're going to ask you, write down the answer, you know, type it out, have that prepared and practice it. So when you get to the interview, even on the phone, you are ready to go. And then the first time you do this, it's very painful because it's very long. But then every time you have an interview, all you have to do is change your answers and change maybe a couple of the questions. But it's a really good tool to have, and it's a really good practice thing. But I found, especially after losing a job, it's back to the thing of they're going to ask you why you left, and you need to have an answer prepared for that. Again, you don't want to be deer in the headlights with it, and you don't want to have any drama. You don't want to bring them into that. You just want to have, you know, something. It was time. It was a good chance for me to try something new, and I'm really excited about what my future holds. Whatever the answer is, you just have to come up with it. This has been so much fun. I'm so happy that you guys joined me today. I want to thank you so much for the great questions. I'm really pleased to see them all, and I hope we get to do this again. Again, my name was Tammy Cannizzaro, and I'd love for you to visit my website, tammycannizzaro.com. I write a blog there. You can follow me weekly, and my book, again, is Tales of the Terminated. If you have any questions, send them to my website, and I hope to see you then. Thanks.